is Talking to My Thoughts.
What was your first negative experience with masturbation that you could remember?
Negative.
Yes.
Negative. I mean, I haven't. Oh no! So I didn't feel like masturbation was. Yeah, it's weird. It's a cloudy thing, isn't it? Because masturbation's always been positive, but it never felt right because you were always keeping it secret. No one ever had to. No one spoke to you, so it always felt good. So at the beginning, it felt kind of negative, but not. It's a weird feeling, right? It's a guilty pleasure, as they call it.
Yes.
Because it feels good to me, right? And it was a natural thing to me. I remember the first time I masturbated and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just holding the pillow in between my legs. And it just felt, for some reason, that felt nice. And then all I felt is the area kind of shaking, but nothing came out. At that age, I was very young.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? So I felt that whole ejaculation simulation, but nothing came out. So that was just a good feeling. Do you get what I'm saying? I remember it's like, I must have been like 9, 10. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
It's really early.
Kind of age. Yeah. And so like, and then being surprised like at my erection, like when my penis grew, I was like, well, yo, what? What's that? You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. And then, but no one to school you on that. It was always it's like getting high. You're like if you have if you have a psychedelic experience or a weird supernatural experience, right? And you go through it, and when you're in it, you're like, oh my gosh, da 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 da. And then you come out and you're like, did that actually happen? And you're like, Like, and it's only you. Only you can tell people about it, but only you will be able to relate with that moment. Do you get what I'm saying? And that's what masturbation has kind of felt like, over the years until it got to that. Here's when masturbation got really dark is when you're going out of your way to watch porn.
That's yeah.
You're going out of your way because it starts very innocently. You end up seeing some, a woman or some things, or even not even a woman, just yourself. You just like, oh, that feels nice randomly. That feels good. See, then you get a woman and that arousal comes to you and you start learning that pattern. And for me, like my first women that I would look at was the WWF divas. Does that make sense? Because they used to really, whenever I'd go on a WWF website, they'd have a page just for divas. And they'd be very like provocative and they have their nipples piercing through their tops and stuff like that. And all of them boobs jobs was the one back then. So that was the thing, isn't it? So I'm watching that. And then, so there's that. And then, it's funny, is my older sister showed me porn first.
Bro. Yeah,
my older sister showed me porn. My first porn website, my older sister's. Like, so up until that point, you may have gone too far past Cartoon Network.
Those end of the numbers.
Yeah.
You start reaching the 300s. You know what I'm saying? Then you start learning the numbers and how to switch between the numbers.
Yeah. Quickly.
So you go from Dexter's laboratory.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You go from Dexter's laboratory to like, Diana's castle. You get what I'm saying? So, but where it became thing is when I understood there was a world out there where I could participate, that encouraged this participation. That not even encouraged, that harvested that energy. You see what I'm saying? there's a world. When I caught wind of that world, it became, for me, it was a website called blackchat.com. There was a blackchat.co.uk, which was a chat room. Then my sister showed me blackchat.com. And she wanted, I think it was her way, like she's from ends, innit? So she was like, I'm like 12, so she's checking that I like girls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that one's okay.
You know what I'm saying?
In the test.
So she's looking at me like, you like that? Yeah, you like that? You like that? And I'm like, yeah, but I ain't trying to let you know, innit? Like, you get what I'm saying? Meanwhile, I'm there like this.
Write it down.
Logging down the website.
Now he remembers clearly, but back then it was like black chat. Okay.
yeah, trying to pretend like you don't know what God.
Yeah. So, you know, it's so funny as I'm having this conversation, I'm remembering all of my early porn websites. Does that make sense? I'm remembering all of them.
Going all the way back.
As I'm having this conversation, there was a website called Dr. Booty Good. So if I'm triggering anyway.
I didn't have that list, boy.
He was on the exclusives, not just the
premium ones. Them premium ones.
You know what it is? The internet was in my room.
Okay,
cool.
You had full access.
The only computer in the house was in my room.
Right.
Good times.
So all I had to do was cover the modem with a pillows. And I was off. You know what I'm saying?
That was a setup. That sounds like a setup, boy. Putting it in your room.
Yeah, literally. So, you know, but when it became dark is when like you reach that teenage age and you're waiting till everyone goes to bed on purpose. You get what I'm trying to say? You're staying up late on purpose. You know what I'm saying? You're waiting and you're like, it's when you become what spiritual law calls a sinner. Yes, meaning somebody who knows
it's wrong,
what's right, but doesn't have the power to do right. You see what I'm saying? There's like an in-between. There's an ignorant person, there's a sinner, and then there's a wicked person. Ignorant person doesn't know that they're doing wrong. A sinner is like, I know I'm doing wrong, but I do not have the power to stop that. A wicked person is like a person who has the power and full knowledge of what they're doing, and they are intentionally doing it. You see what I'm saying? So this is when you start to feel that way. Because I'm like, yeah, mama, I'm just going to do some work, or I'm going to watch, you know what you're going to do. So it's not the masturbation that is the issue. It's everything that surrounds it that allows that you do to get to that place of peace. Because that's all we're chasing as men. And because there's no safe space for us to connect and do that and practice our nature, it gets wrapped up into this world of lies, deception, sin, lust. You get what I'm saying? It's almost, it's very sad. We almost get tossed to the lions, if you will, you know, who built an industry around the energy that is otherwise uncultivated. So I think, at that teenage age, I can't remember specific moments, but, you know, going back, I remember, I'm doing a lot just to get to this, just to get to this practice. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting actually, because as you said that, it never starts off as we already touched on, it never starts off as you're doing something which you think is wrong. As an innocent teenager, it's not even the fact of you're hiding it because you know it's wrong. You're hiding it because you're embarrassed by it. So it leads on to then starting to think, okay, it's wrong because no one else is speaking about it. So I think that's where the confusion happens, because not even just
they're not speaking about it. Most people are preaching against.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's why you think, okay, now it's wrong. So now I'm committing a sin, but I can't help myself. And that's the word that I started off with, is it's almost a lack of control, because now I can't help myself. It's a natural thing for me, but I'm embarrassed by it. And now it's got to a point where I now think I'm doing wrong by doing it. So I'm definitely not telling anyone. Why am I going to tell everyone that I'm doing wrong? That don't make no sense. Yeah, so it's I think the stigma needs to be opened up a little bit more. And I guess the question that we would need to think about is, how do we then make it so that it's not stigmatized? How do we create that space? Conversation like this is great, but there needs to be a safe space where, as a young person growing up, when you start to discover yourself like that, where do you go to? Who do you speak to? Like, how does that work? And I think that's what we need to start tackling. What's the solution in that?
Well, in the motherland, they have rites of passage, where when a boy and a girl reach these age of puberty, they are separated and gone through their training as men and women. You see, and a lot of that time that will involve, for example, the women. It will involve how to clean their vulva, how to pleasure their future husband. You know, their roles and responsibilities as a woman. For the boy, it's the same. Their roles as a man, he will get put through certain things that show his responsibility and his discipline, which is all to do with his sexuality, and he will be circumcised. You see what I'm saying? So things like that, for example, where the community as men, we are to create these environments for young men and women to engage in their sexuality with security and wisdom and support. You see what I'm saying? For example, there's even some cultures in the motherland where when they reach the age of 15 and 16 and their sex drives are naturally growing, they create like what we would call a rave. Yeah, what we would call raves for the young kids to link up and dance and whine and grind on each other, but they're not allowed to have sex. But they can, basically what we was doing in the clubs. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You know, and that's the environment for them to be able to play with their sexual growth in safe environments. You see, and then that would inspire their rites of passage because they know what comes next. Once they've gone through their rites of passage, they will be allowed to have sex. They'll be allowed to commune together. They'll be allowed to do all of these things. Do you get what I'm saying? So, so in a nutshell, it's about us looking at us as men culturally, as black men, and us in this environment and world we live in. How do we bring boys through that trajectory of growth, which it's inevitable, it's going to come. And I think more than women, right, it's like women are taught sexual vulnerability. Yes, how to be open, how to remain sexual or sensual, how to constantly inspire and receive and be passive for her husband. Men are to be taught sexual discipline. You see what I'm saying? Sexual vulnerability, being open to receive, yes, and welcome a man in, and a man's sexual discipline, yes, his ability to command his sexual essence, not just in the sexual game with a woman, but in life, because that sexual essence is his life force. You see what I'm saying? So sexual discipline must be cultivated in our teenage boys so that when they become men, it can be pointed in the direction of whatever they are to manifest as men. You know, and the family plays a big role in that. Lack of sexual discipline leads to poor choices in sexual partners. You know, which leads to broken families. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And that's a huge thing on a man's part. Does that make sense? So, I think sexual discipline, but we have to go through that training ourselves. And this conversation is like this conversation. This conversation needs to be had a lot.
Yeah.
Like, there should be a podcast just on
Just this of multiple
Masturbation.
variations of this conversation. No, guaranteed.
Like,
It's interesting what you say there, Mikel, because like some of the stuff that I've learned over the time, especially more in my adult age, more in my 20s, around masturbation and the trying to get over the taboo. How is it so natural? And more specifically, what you focus on is the energy, especially spiritual energy. That is the main thing that you focus on. The first time I ever read it was in Think and Grow Rich, which was around sexual energy. And they said that masturbation, actually, well, sex in general is actually about creativity. It's not about like horniness. And this is the first time this I heard this walked my brain. I was like, really? Like being horny is not necessarily the fact of you wanting sex or you wanted masturbation. It's actually just raw energy that is actually for creation, like babies, but also for other things. It's actually for creation, but we interpret it because we've created a link between that energy coming up and we suddenly want to masturbate or escape with it or hide it. But in reality, the energy can be, as he said, as Mikel said, harnessed into people that paint, people that sing, create songs, create some of the best things that they've had in that kind of way. And it's more important to kind of have that kind of control. Go ahead, Mikel.
Yeah, no, something came up in my head that what really ruins us is definitions. Definition, like, because what really blew my mind is that desire that we have when we're horny or when we go into lust to want to have sex or masturbate, as you rightfully said, is exactly the same when you transmute that energy up another notch. The truth is, all we're doing with life is having sex. Like, we are literally, when you understand that sex is masculine and feminine, creating something new, that's what it is. We are literally caught up in that game. That our entire experience of life is sex, meaning the moon, the earth, and the sun. That's the biggest sexual relationship that's happening, and we are a product of that. We stand in between those two. You see what I'm saying? So we look at it, we look at sex. If you want to go into chakras, if not, it doesn't matter. But we look at sex as the lowest part of ourselves that can physically produce another human. You see? But the physical part of ourselves is only the last aspect to our spirituality. There's at least 10 other layers to our spirituality that the sexual energy is produced on. As you said, it's in how we connect with people. It's in how we are compassionate and can empathize with people. It's in our ability to create, our ability to foresee, to astral project, our ability to have extrasensory perception. All of those things are products of your sexual essence, that masculine and feminine relationship. And so I think it's and this is something I talk about a lot because it's important for people to start to understand. Once I started to understood that, like, that sex is layers, then I started as a man. It's weird. As men, we like to be challenged.
Yeah.
But we don't. If we go on a basketball court and see every man dunking, even the smallest guy, we're gonna be like, I'm dunking. You get what I'm trying to say? You're not about to be the only guy not dunking.
Yeah.
You see? And when we believe that my dick raising or that rush of blood to the lower areas of my being is for pornography or just for a woman, then that's all we're gonna be caught up in. You see? However, when we learn that, that's how you can build new worlds. You know that, right?
Yeah.
And you literally see it in practice. You start going, hold on, wait. Let me try this. And I've done it. And you feel so fulfilled. And you're like, oh shit. You see? Now, where I want brothers to go easy on themselves is, most of us been wanking since 12 and up. So we're 30-year-olds.
Takes time.
Yeah. And this is where we beat ourselves up. You read
Patience.
one blog post about semen retention and think you're supposed to just download that. You're dealing with you're dealing with a 20-year habit. You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with a 20-year habit.